Hi Fox, how are you doing? Well, for the first time maybe in this Gashimov tournament, all three games of the A group in this third round were really interesting. Let's see what happened in the probably the main game of the round, of course, involving the world champion Magnus Carlsen, who was black today against Sergei Karjakin, who was white. Let's see what happened here. Okay, 1d4. Karjakin has been playing, I think, 1e4 for almost all his life. But lately he's trying d4. So it is very interesting and very brave by him to play d4, which is not the kind of opening he's an expert in. Tried against the world champion is quite a decision. And Magnus goes for the Nimzo-indian defense. Knight c3, bishop b4, and once again we see the very cool f3 variation. In recent months, this move has led to some really epic games. Remembering that Anand Carlsen from the World Championship game, from the World Championship match, or Nakamura Carlsen from Zurich was quite a spectacular one. Or more recently, in the candidates, we had the game between Mamedyarov and Aronian, which was once again very spectacular and a very crazy game. So okay, it's a good news to see this f3 move. Black castles. Karjakin plays a3 immediately, takes, and Carlsen reacts here with knight h5, more or less a principled way. It seems in this variation, of course, black is threatening to check on h4, then g3 wouldn't be possible. I mean, just to illustrate, let's make a stupid move for white, a4. Black would check, and of course g3 is not possible. Wait for this classical knight takes g3, and then rook is pinned, etc. So, well, knight h5 has this idea basically. White has to play more or less forced knight h3, which would allow white to put the knight on f2, protect from himself from the check. And okay, black plays f5, securing the e4 square, which is what white would like to play ideally, putting a great central wall of pawns, playing e4. So black stops that for the time being, and as Svidler was commenting, he will play behind this pawn. He will have a strong control of this e4 square, and well, thanks to the fact that he has a lead in development, white will find it more difficult to play e4, even if the pawn on f3 would be supporting that. After thinking for a while, here e3 was played by Karjakin. Well, for instance, the game between Carlsen and Morozevich in 2009, which was a blitz game, followed with this another possibility, certainly a main move here, bishop g5, queen e8, and then Carlsen played g4. After f takes, white's king side really looks bizarre, but it seems this is very playable. There is no much danger here. Knight f6 and queen d3 was played here. Well, Morozevich went on d6, and finally, eventually, Magnus Carlsen as white won this blitz game in 2009. But well, Karjakin plays more solidly. He plays e3, just he wants to complete development, and well, he thought for a while to make this move. Not probably he isn't that booked up in these Nimzo lines, then he would be in the Sicilian or Rui Lopez openings. Carlsen plays d6, normal reaction. Normally black, I think, tries to prepare e5 in these lines, counter-attacking or on the white pawn center. Now bishop e2, completing development, and c5 was played here, immediately counter-attacking white's center. Well, knight c6 was, for instance, suggested by the commentators, by Lawrence Trent and Svidler, who I was following, and they were more or less saying that this knight will go back to f6, and maybe queen e7, or even without preparing that much, e5 is black's idea, just trying to crash back into the center, and well, black has a very comfortable position. In fact, well, Svidler was kind of joking. I mean, he was saying the Nimzo-indian is a great defense if you're going to get positions like this in every game, and so on. But okay, c5 of course makes lots of sense as well. Now white castles, and now black plays knight c6. He already has the c pawn advanced. And here, well, Karjakin goes for a rather speculative move. g4, I'm sure not too many people would think of about this move. The first side, this is opening a lot white's king side, and certainly has some danger in it. I mean, Carlsen didn't play very aggressively. He just took, and after f takes, he just went back with the knight f6. But let us take a look at the possibilities, because certainly there were some possibilities. And I think it seems that queen h4 in this position instead of taking was quite critical. Very interesting. Now the knight is under attack, and there are a couple of possibilities here for white. It seems the main one, the best one, is to protect the knight with g2, and here it could follow f takes, rook takes, probably the queen with to take, of course not the king, maybe the bishop. And now after knight f6, there is some attack over the pawn on g4. I don't know, queen f2, trying to force the exchange of queens, but somehow it seems that black could be better here in this position. Probably not that much, but his development seems better, more harmonious, and I mean the bishop on c1, it isn't clear what is he going to do. So well, black's position seems more solid and maybe preferable here. There are a couple of tactical possibilities against the white king, which may be vulnerable if the queens are not exchanged, etc. Well, instead of king g2, there was the other possibility of protecting the knight after queen h4 was to get out with the knight f2. But here, of course, for instance, f takes once again, and well, once again, two possibilities. If knight takes g4, e5, the bishop is open to attack the knight on g4, and after it's exchanged, the knight could go back, attacking once again, and well, white might find himself struggling the king side, just not being very happy with his decision of opening this king side wide open a couple of moves ago. If instead white takes with the f pawn, now there is a very nice move, sacrificing a piece for the time being. Knight g3 is threatening the rooks, and after h takes, queen takes g3 check, king h1. There is the immediate possibility of taking the piece back with rook takes f2, or it seems it's even a better version of this to threaten checkmate so far with the rook f6 move and make white force him into playing e4, protecting h6, and now take on f2. And if rook takes, queen takes, white king in the corner looks like a bad boxer in the corner, just being beaten up. And I'm not sure, maybe white could survive this because black hasn't got that many pieces into the king side yet, but certainly this doesn't look the position you want to get with white pieces on the move, I don't know, 16 on 17th. But okay, this was a possibility we didn't see because Magnus didn't play this queen h4 move after g4. He just took, white takes, and he played knight f6. Here knight f2 was played, just defending the pawn, playing solid. At the first sight, maybe g5 may look tempting, but black is a bit better here, I think, thanks to this enormous knight on e4, attacking both c3, g4, g5. And okay, this still a lot to calculate, some tactical tricks maybe here, but the knight really is looking good there. For instance, white probably takes on f8, queen takes, and now maybe bishop d3. Probably knight takes c3 is playable, although maybe a little bit risky. Now white could try queen h5, obviously threatening checkmate. And after g6, white could sacrifice here, queen takes g6, king h8, and after giving another check, king g7, he could try to play, for instance, bishop b2, put the rook, for instance, on f1, and well, after these central pawns are exchanged or advanced, this bishop on b2 could be a great piece on the big diagonal. And well, white has sacrificed a piece, of course, but now black king is looking unsecure. And well, he certainly may have compensation enough, at least not to be in a much worse position. So certainly this was a possibility, an interesting one. Well, the more calm move was to play knight f2, more principled. Now h6 is played to stop g5 forever. And here after e4, a very typical reaction, as far as I know, with my limited knowledge of the Nimzo-Indian, is to play in this kind of position after white has played e4 in the same Nimzo-Indian to play e5. So that's why black has been preparing it with d6 and knight c6. So black is doing more or less fine here. I mean, white has the bishop pair, but his pawn structure is much worse. He has doubled pawn, etc. So black really hasn't any problems here. d5 blockading the situation. Knight goes to e7, and now g5. Karjakin forces matters with the g5, g pawn. H takes, he takes with the bishop. Queen e8. The queen would go to the king side through the light squares. And now queen d3 is played, developing the queen, and queen g6, queen g3, which is pretty normal, defending the bishop on g5. Carlsen develops the bishop to d7, and king h1, maybe thinking about putting the rook on g1, like a prophylactic move. And well, Carlsen takes his tempest to double up rooks on the f file, rook f7. Queen goes to h4. Not really sure for which reason. I mean, of course, the knight on e7 could be in danger, could be taken if the knight is moved here. The knight on f6 is right now pinned, but really doesn't seem there is much problem here for black, as rook af8 is played, and now Karjakin plays rook ae1. Well, we have been playing through this game. 22 moves have been played so far, and I think there was a serious time trouble already here for white, for Karjakin. And well, besides his position is somewhat worse, he has some weakness, long-term weak pawns. So his task wasn't easy. I mean, he had some serious time trouble ahead. I think there is no increment in this tournament. So well, Magnus offered the queen exchange on h7, which seems to be more or less forced to be accepted. I mean, if queen g3, for instance, I think it's losing the e4 pawn for nothing. Knight takes e4, the queen is protecting there. So it seems more or less forced to exchange queens here, as it happened. And after bishop e3, well, we have this more or less middle game slash queenless endgame, in which I think black is better. Maybe not yet winning, but they're having a very comfortable edge here. Absolutely the kind of position that Magnus likes to have. He has it with black pieces even here. And I mean, his rooks, for instance, are controlling the open file. Absolutely domination of the open file. White has tons of a bunch of weak pawns, doubled pawns here. And although white has the bishop pair, his bishops aren't really any active. So this must be absolutely better for black. As I said, maybe not winning yet, and of course an amateur like me probably wouldn't appreciate it without the wise comments of Peter Svidler, etc. and the engine, but this must be feels like better for black. Let's see what happened later. Knight g6 was played. Black, of course, will try to improve his knights, get them on strongholds on the king side, probably to attack white weaknesses. Knight d3 and rook takes f1. All the rooks were exchanged here. We have even less pieces in the board, and well, kind of a position Magnus loves, slightly better endgames, in which you can just push forever if you want to. And if Karjakin, as in this case, he has a time trouble, even better. So knight f6 attacks the pawn on e4, knight f2 defends that. And now knight f4, and well, and you can see the bishop's pair here is almost useless because black knights are completely dominating the position. The one on f4 is quite powerful. The one on f6 is also looking to go too strong squares. Even the bishop on d7 is guarding lots of important squares. He has the option to go to the queen side. So black's pieces are absolutely much better than white's one. if you add to that perpetually weaknesses of white's pawn structure, this must be absolutely definitely better for black. Now h4 was played, bishop g5, knight g6 to attack the pawn, and bishop g5 just protects that. Knight h7, and well, Karjakin doesn't want that bishop to be exchanged. On g5 he goes to d8, maybe looking to attack probably the only weakness black has in this position, only serious weakness, which could be d6 pawn. He doesn't have a dark squared bishop to protect it. So king f7, king h2, the kings must go towards the center. Here knight f6 was played. Well, my engine suggests to play king e8, attacking the bishop right away. And for instance, bishop g5 now would black would have what he was desiring, it seems, exchanging the bishop on g5 and going with the knight to a strong f4 square. Otherwise, if the bishop doesn't go back to g5 and it goes to c7, now king e7, and I don't know, king g3, knight f6, maybe this is a little bit better for black than what happened in the game. Not really sure, because the differences are very subtle to me to understand them. But okay, knight f6 at the spot was played, and now king g3, very alike position, knight f4, and the king goes to f3. Now bishop e4, we see the bishop go to the queen side. Ideas of checking here, there is a weakness on light squares on c4, so well, the bishop is now seen to be more useful in the queen side, or even going behind the central pawns. Knight h3 is played, and well, I think if black takes here on h3, bishop takes, and now white is considerably relieved, because his bishop pair has found some active squares. This one will probably go to, will maybe go to e6 checking, and well, white could be just in time to protect all his central pawns with the king, and I think this is better for white than the position which we're just going to see in the game being played after bishop d1 check. This is what Magnus played, seems correctly. And he did king e3, and now the knight once again goes back to g6, attacking the pawn. Knight g5 check is played here, king e8. Of course, the bishop must be protected. Knight d6 he played, Karjakin protecting the bishop, and now black can take the pawn. After bishop c7, the pawn on d6 is attacked. King d7, bishop b8, and now white takes the pawn back. The one, well, after bishop g4, he takes the pawn on g7. a6, the a7 pawn was under attack. Bishop d3, just to keep these pawns under control. You know, the bishop doesn't have any other square to go to, so well, it may be even useful to go to d3 and later to c2 at some point maybe. Knight g2 check is played here, king d2, king e7. This seems a critical decision by Carlsen. It was suggested, and it seemed that it was move b5 was putting much more pressure on white's position. Here, after the exchange of pawns, the best move seems to be something like, I don't know, knight e6 or bishop c2 with similar positions. And after this, of course, black is winning a pawn after, for instance, c4 and taking on e6. It seems black would be more or less winning a pawn. And well, of course, this is better for black, but maybe holdable. This is uncomfortable for white, as his bishop pair is kind of restricted, and white is in the driver's, black is in the driver's seat, just having all the initiative and the pawn being a pawn up. But maybe holdable, I don't know. And here it is funny to note that instead of this knight e6 move, the most obvious bishop takes b5 check is losing, because the dark squared bishop on b8 is kind of trapped after king c8, if bishop a7. In fact, king b7 is trapping the bishop, so the bishop will have to take probably on c5, so this must be over. But okay, instead Carlsen went for another idea, interesting one. He played king e7, and after a4 he plays king f7. His idea is to win a white piece in exchange for his central pawns. And well, practically speaking, this probably makes White's life easier, but it was considerably, a move to a plan to consider, an interesting one, and certainly, you have to calculate these interesting possibilities. Now bishop took on d6. Karjakin takes this challenge. King takes the knight, and Karjakin takes on e5. These are 2 pawns for the piece sacrificed so far, and which is more important for White. Now he has a couple of connected passed pawns in the center on the d and e file. Here knight h4 was played by Carlsen. Already 46 moves have been played. Really long game, and it seems the last chance probably to keep real pressure over the White position was to play the bishop f3 move here. And here it was interesting that after d6, Black just goes back to g4, guarding the d7 square and kind of passing the turn to White, who is probably in kind of a zugzwang because the White hasn't really any productive move to make. And well, the ingenious evaluating this as slightly better for Black, and certainly seems better than the knight h4 move which Carlsen played. Honestly speaking, I don't know. This seems really a bizarre position, as much as the one we just gonna see in the main line. So well, it seems these central pawns are giving at least White lots of possibilities to at least draw the game. I don't know. Complicated position for me. It's really hard to understand. But okay, knight h4, and well, this seems to be better, easier for White, as he's after bishop g3. Obviously, the knight is attacked. Knight g5, knight g6. White advances his central pawns with 10 piece. e5 is played. After knight d7, even e6. Knight d5, and well, after bishop takes, knight takes. It is Black now who must be a little careful not to lose control of the game with the central passed pawns, as it is very difficult here to win with Black. I mean, Black would have to swap exchange all pawns. Win all the pawns, exchange all his ones, win all White pawns, and even win this bishop to more or less checkmate with the bishop and the knight. So it's not really easy that this to lose for White. After bishop d6, king f6 were played. Thanks to his better king. Black is really not going to have much promise to draw this, but this is more or less the crucial difference here. The Black king is going to be able to get in the center much quicker than the White. Bishop takes c5, now king e5. Black has enough resources to keep the drawish position here. After king e3, bishop d1. There is a weakness on a4, of course. There is a weakness on c4. Bishop b6 was played, and Black took on a4. Bishop c7 check. King guards the e7 square with king f6. King d4, king e7, c5, knight h4, c4, knight checks on f3. And after king c3, knight goes back to g5, just keeping the pieces in flexible places. King b4, but the bishop of course goes back, goes to d1. To bishop g3, Black forces matters, taking on e6. After d takes e6, this is a opposite color bishop endgames. In fact, the e6 pawn is going to fall, so there is really nothing less to be playing for anymore. So after bishop f3, bishop h4 check, 63 moves, they just agreed to a draw. And well, a very long battle, very hard fought. It seems that Black, Magnus Carlsen as Black, really had a very comfortable position right from the opening, and well, he was very kind of near to win the game, but finally Karjakin played well. He resisted the time pressure, and finally the game was drawn. Let us see what the remaining rounds have prepared for us. Thanks for watching.